What's going on, FA Nation? Another week of domination has already begun, and that's why we're going to keep helping you win those rings for another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with John Impemba. John, it's been a crazy week here. Got Patrick Mahomes, who's now a part owner of the Royals.
Right?
I'm a dog dad now, and now the Nationals are voting as a team that they don't want to go and play the Marlins this weekend. What a world, right?
I mean, I don't blame them for not wanting to go play the Marlins in Miami. I think at this point, Florida itself should be off limits to these teams. You know, the Rays should be forced to play on the road now at this point, or the Marlins should, have all their games on the road. They're delayed in their season till Monday is the most recent report that we're seeing. Well, they figure out their roster moves, allowing players to retest, because we've had a history so far of some false positives already being put out there. So their season's been put on hold. I think the safest thing right now is to move those two teams out of Florida. Don't make any teams go to Florida and try to keep everybody as safe and healthy as they can be. I don't blame the Nationals for not wanting to play the Marlins. And we're already getting some schedule changes due to everything. The Yankees were supposed to be playing the Phillies, but the Phillies had just played Miami, so the Yankees and Orioles now are actually going to be playing one another instead of Baltimore supposed to be playing the Marlins and the Yankees playing the Phillies. So we're already getting a schedule change in the season, only 3 or 4 days into the MLB year due to COVID.
Yes, and John, let me go on a small soapbox because I'm sure you can feel my frustration. What happens, we see the reports yesterday about the Marlins testing positive, the Phillies, and then all of a sudden, everyone's like, season's over, that's it. I get it. I know it's a major health issue. I know it goes beyond sports themselves. But do you think, and this is what frustrates me, John, we talked about it on Alarm After Hours last night on Sirius XM. It frustrates me that one incident and all these analysts for MLB that I've been seeing are calling for the end of the season like that. Do they not think that Major League Baseball prepared for at least one incident, if not 4 or 5, besides going, oh, it's season's over, one incident? Come on, man. I don't get these people.
Right. I mean, I would hope the MLB was certainly prepared for these situations. Now, they didn't do a great job really in building in extra time for these scenarios. They're on a strict time frame for when the playoffs start, when the season ends. So we may be seeing these teams have to play some more double headers to get in the 60 games, or maybe the MLB bites the bullet a little bit here, pushes back the start of the playoffs to build in, a week or so of makeup games. And then they move, the playoffs maybe to bubble areas, right? In warmer weather where we know that these games can be played and you're not stuck in New York in mid-November where it's probably going to be snowing, See if the MLB can at least pivot a little bit here. But, right, for all of a sudden to be calling for sports to be canceled to end the MLB season when one team, and it's only been one team, the Phillies, took their tests, and apparently everything came back negative for them. There has to be a plan in place. They expanded the rosters for an instance where maybe there was going to be a minor breakout within a team. So the Marlins do have players available to fill in for these. Like I said, they're sort of postponing the games for some of these teams to sort of reset a schedule. So the MLB season is still going to move on. Ranford himself said they're not canceling anything yet. So, for those who are already sort of panicking and freaking out and saying this is why we shouldn't be doing anything, are certainly taking things to the extreme.
Yeah, we're going to be using those COVID spots on our injured lists very, very early, especially if we own Marlins players. Everything that we've seen thus far, John, and these stories are updating every hour. It just seems like Craig Mish reported that at least it's on hold the season now for a week. And that's fine. That's okay. But the MLB has contingency plans in order. And John, you're absolutely right. The timetable that they gave themselves, waiting till the last minute, shocker. Who hasn't done that before? Right. And now with that, John, that's why I'm not one that's saying, I'm not saying that I'm not thinking about the health issues of these athletes. I'm just saying that the leagues themselves, and whether it's the NFL, who's now sitting there watching and learning, the MLB, who is unfortunately the guinea pigs of the 4 core sports, and the MLB and the NFL can't have the bubble system. Soon enough, John, it's going to be the slogan of the year, be the bubble, if the NBA goes off without a hitch, and the NHL as well.
I think the bubble is going to be a great use case for everything that's going on right now. We're seeing players Just to jump ahead, we had planned on talking about the NFL. We're already seeing players in the NFL opt out of the 2020 season. The plan for the NFL, maybe even shockingly, some owners are planning on having fans in the stands for some of these NFL games. I don't know how you can possibly do that at this point. Even at limited capacity, I know up here in New England, the word on the street was that they were going to allow a 20% capacity of fans in the stadium. You don't need to be doing that. I think, finding some sort of bubble plan for the NFL, even if it's sort of a regional bubble idea where like teams are allowed to use, college fields for practice, go to an isolated area for games, and try to do it that way makes a lot more sense than having teams have to travel, potentially expose themselves, relying on people's sort of personal responsibility here to do the right thing, which I think is a big problem. You have a lot of these kids, younger, 20 years old, young 20s, who, may or may not be as responsible with their mask wearing or their social distancing, or maybe they don't believe, that COVID is really a big deal to them and whatnot, and it's causing some of these issues. So I think the NFL is certainly going to have to has the benefit of being able to observe everything that's going on right now. The MLB is showing that, maybe they didn't take the right process, but the NBA and the NHL, even especially the NHL recently released that they did over 4,000 COVID tests within their bubble and nobody tested positive. Seems like they have the right plan that works. MLB is sort of a trial by error.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about waivers for a second, John, because that's going to be the most popular thing in fantasy baseball now with teams on pause. So players are going to have to be picked up so we can, especially in roto leagues too. Head-to-head's now one thing. Now it makes me think, if I was in a head-to-head.
I'm missing Garrett Cole starts, man. Missing Garrett Cole starts.
Dude, it's nuts here. But is there anyone, because you and I are in a league together with some of FA Nation. I mean, I'm not trying to steal your players. We're all in this together. It's all about the subscribers and listeners anyway, John.
Right.
So, and the viewers in this case. So is there anybody that you're immediately looking to pick up on waivers, especially from the hitting side, to replace maybe a couple of those players that are now going to be on hiatus, another hiatus for the next few days?
Yeah, I mean, I think I benefited personally from the fact that there weren't many Marlins on my roster, right? There wasn't much that I was going on, but yeah, I mean, if you're talking about guys that got off to hot starts, and this is something that I mentioned a lot heading into the MLB season, but guys who get streaky, Jackie Bradley Jr. of the Red Sox started 8 for 14. And if you look at his career, there's about 2 months in every season where he goes and hits like 350 and is basically one of the hottest hitters in baseball. If you need to replace an outfielder, JBJ right now in a Red Sox line, I'm off to a hot start. David Fletcher has 4 position eligibility if you play in Yahoo leagues. What better guy than they go to pick up right now himself? He's 8 for 15 to start the year. He's actually the cover of today's Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS playbook done by Justin Vreeland. So we're thinking obviously highly of him. Miguel Rojas, he was a really hot play for Miami. He just got listed for COVID. So if you're looking to find someone maybe to replace him, you can look at maybe Colin Moran of Pittsburgh, who's, off to a fine start. 3 home runs already in 4 games for Colin Moran. So guys like that are available in free agency that you could possibly pick up to replace some of these Marlins hitters. But again, there was a lot of high ownership on Marlins players anyway. So I think you're probably okay in that scenario. What you're going to be looking for now is if you have like national players or if you have Yankees players who now aren't playing till the end of the week, and you need to stream or keep up in some roto scenarios, then maybe those are guys you're looking to sort of add and help fill in spots.
I mean, is someone that you'd be looking at maybe someone like a Kike Hernandez at this point?
Yeah, I mean, again, another guy that has a lot of position eligibility. For me, he's always been more of a splits guy. He kills left-handed pitching. Right-handed pitching doesn't do a lot of damage against. He's off to a good start, though. And like I said, you want to ride these guys that are off to hot starts. Teoscar Hernandez, an outfielder for the Blue Jays. We saw him have success last year, so it's not like he's a total zero. But he's a guy that's off to a hot start, 5 for 17, 2 homers already. We've seen Jose Peraza, again, of Boston. He's hit leadoff a few times for that team already. He's got multiple position eligibility, so having guys that have played multiple positions, certainly a bonus. And it allows you to kind of maneuver around if you are missing players due to these COVID incidents.
Yeah, this is one of those instances where I thought drafting someone like Manny Machado, who I saw dropping in our mock draft army recent mocks, right up to the season. I noticed he was dropping just a little bit, sneaking him in there in round 4 and even one draft round 5. And I have him in our league, John. And that's why, because of third base and shortstop eligibility, I knew this was going to be a problem at some point with COVID. I did not expect us to have a flawless MLB season. And you're right. Now guys like Fletcher, I mean, you talk about players like Ben Zobrist in the past who had so much extra value because of all the eligibility. So now with Fletcher being there, perfect utility option for you that doesn't just qualify in utility. So let's not be literal, but someone who qualifies at multiple positions. John, at this point here, I'm going to be riding this out as much as possible for everyone to say, well, why continue this season? Because I want to win. What else did we have 3-4 months? Nothing. We haven't had anything else. We've been waiting for this moment. And John, I said this to you last night. I'm going to say it again. I'd rather be in this moment right now than where we were 2 months ago, where we were so frustrated with the negotiations. Now, I'd rather be here. At least we have a season right now. And by the way, this is exactly why a while back, when you, me, Ronas, I believe Jen Piacenti was there, Howard as well. This is exactly why I said do away with the NFL preseason. I would rather the NFL season start, we get a few weeks, and then a cancellation than not having it at all.
1,000% agree. I think this is what we should have done. And, you know, again, I wasn't for canceling either. I think that we're just going to have the growing pains of what the season's going to be. And like you said before, we're going to have to be aggressive on the waiver wire to make sure our teams are, you're getting as many healthy players in there as possible.
Yes, and let's talk about something else that's a little bit more comedic if we haven't had enough comedy in our worlds over the last few months. And, John, that's Keenan Allen. And moving on to fantasy football here, Keenan Allen, you know, I love when these athletes see these rankings lists that whoever puts
Madden
together.
Ratings, man. The Madden ratings are like the worst thing to happen, right?
Yeah, it's like, who cares? But hey, if you're an athlete, your ego's hurt to the slightest. You want to make a comment about it, we're going to talk about it. This is 2020, and Keenan Allen then saying that he is the best wide receiver in the AFC West. John, my question to you is, from a reality and fantasy standpoint, do you believe that? Or do you really think, like probably the rest of the world does, that Tyreek Hill is much better than he is at this point?
So it's definitely close. If you're looking at it in a vacuum and not from a fantasy standpoint, like a man-to-man play, you know, Tyreek certainly has the speed, but I don't think he's nearly the route runner. I don't think he has nearly the hands that Keenan Allen has. Big play-wise, sure. You're going to go to Tyreek Hill because he stretches the field, and it certainly helps that Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback. If you flip the quarterback situations this year, Keenan Allen might be among the top 5 wide receivers in football. You know, like Patrick Mahomes would connect on Keenan Allen pretty much every single play down the field like he does on Travis Kelce and like we see him do with Tyreek Hill. If you gave Tyreek Hill Tyrod Taylor, he probably wouldn't nearly put up the numbers that he would otherwise. So, is it difficult to totally discount the fact that Keenan Allen claims himself as the number 1 wide receiver? I don't think so. But as I said to you on Alarm After Hours, usually if you have to call yourself the best, you're not the best. Other people will tell you who's the best. So in that vacuum, in that instance, he's probably not. But I think it's close. I think him and Tyreek are certainly 1A, 1B. Cortland Sutton's probably, closely behind them in the group there.
Keenan Allen for fantasy, someone that I have not targeted at all. I don't want to say he's forgotten about because value supersedes all, but this Chargers team, man, I just don't know of many options I'd want to go after from this team. I mean, Eckler, I have one share of already, and I'm still a little bit nervous about it with the Razzball starting, John. You were talking about your draft selection, your draft pick. I got the 10th. Yeah, you got number 2. I got the 10th pick. I
like your spot. I like your spot better than mine, Fensty. I swear to God. I like drafting at the end of the first round. I feel like in a league where the running back depth is an issue this year in terms of guys who have secure jobs, sure, I'm going to get a Zeke, I'm going to get a Kamara, Barkley, maybe CMC. But come the end of round 2, I'm going to be looking at maybe some murky waters here at the running back position. If a run of guys go in that second round, I could be looking at guys with injury-prone problems or guys that could be in possible timeshares. And to me, that is a little bit more troublesome where I could have the end of the second round and I could steal 2 guys where I feel rather confident in their roles, in their jobs. I could take a Josh Jacobs and a Derrick Henry, or I could take, a Chubb, Miles Sanders, or a Kenyon Drake, even guys who I think are more secure in their positions back to back, and get myself 2 really solid running backs instead of, being top heavy with Barkley, we'll say, and then maybe come end of round 2, best case scenario, Leonard Fournette's still on the board. Otherwise, I'm looking at a Melvin Gordon, a Todd Gurley, guys in that range where it's like, okay, they're fine, but we don't know, we're unsure exactly what they can bring. There's some questions between durability there, and then that kind of puts me in a spot. And when I've drafted early, I've actually more likely gone running back, wide receiver, or if Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill have made it back to me. I've only had this duo once in a best ball, where I've gone Kelce, then Mahomes in round 3 to pair up those 2 guys, and give myself an opportunity to have the number 1 running back, number 1 tight end, and number 1 quarterback on my roster, which is a good feeling as well, but still not how I
with that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's not how I've traditionally liked to build my teams, right? And knowing that the running back depth is kind of difficult this year, having to come back now at the end of round 5, my RB2 could be, who knows, anywhere from, we'll say Devin Singletary maybe, or David Montgomery. Those guys could be gone if runs go. Then I'm looking at maybe pass catchers like a Kareem Hunt, a James White, maybe Jordan Howard still on the board. So once you get to that 4th or 5th round, the running back depth really takes a dive. So it's just questions you have to figure out how you want to build your roster.
So from what I'm gathering from what you just said, you would rather address running back early, maybe 2 in the first 3 rounds.
Easy. And again, this isn't, you've seen my draft boards. Some drafts I've started running back, to secure the position, because I feel like once you get into these later rounds, and I know recently there's been more conjecture about the 0 RB strategy this year, where people are loving their Marlon Macks and Phillip Lindsay's and all these guys that are in timeshares because you're getting them in round 7, 8, 9, 10, and going 0 RB strategy in that direction. I just feel like there's a lot of risk there.
Yeah, there is. And we've talked about this with Ronis a lot. Ronis is not a 0 running back, but he's a grab your running back in the first round and then really hit on the receivers depending on where you are in the draft. Because, John, you did mention that if you are on, let's just say, the left side with picks 1 through 4, you could be in that area to get George Kittle. Travis Kelce will probably be gone at that point.
Right.
But still, and that's why, John, I, as someone who for the last few years has really prioritized running back more. That's why I'm open to tinkering with my strategy just a little bit, because I've noticed in the last few years my areas of struggle, because I would always say, there's a bunch of wide receiver depth. I don't know if I wasn't aggressive enough on the waiver wire over the last few years. I do have a title or 2 in the last 2 years, but I will say this, that when it comes to wide receivers, I have not done a good job of getting those wide receivers beyond maybe springing for the first one, whoever it may be, whether it's been for injury, lack of depth. But this year, John, and we continue to talk about it, there is definitely a run of receivers you can get in that 3rd, 4th round area. Talk about Allen Robinson, who I still see going in the 3rd round. Even Adam Thielen. I love Adam Thielen's ADP at this point, John. I'm seeing him, 4th round guy. I don't think he'll slip any more than that. But why not go after a Thielen as your wide receiver 2 in the 4th round?
No, I agree with you. I think Thielen is going to be a guy that's going to be heavily targeted, especially if Dalvin Cook ends up truly holding out like we've seen other running backs do in recent years, like a Melvin Gordon, like a Le'Veon Bell. They're not going to throw the ball to Madison as much as they clearly threw to Dalvin Cook. Madison doesn't have that necessary same skill set, which means they're going to be throwing the football a lot more to those receivers. And a guy like Thielen is going to be a guy that's certainly going to see, maybe even an increase, and we'll use a basketball term here as usage, maybe some increased usage in that offense as well. And again, we'll figure it out as we get closer to the start of the season. This is one of the reasons why I like drafting late as opposed to drafting early, because if that picture comes clearer and Cook is like, hey, I ain't playing without a contract, and the Vikings are like, hey, we like Alexander Madison almost as much as we like you. We'll let you wait out the contract. You can go ahead and bump up value on guys like a Thielen, like a Justin Jefferson, and even like a sneaky tight end, and Irv Smith Jr., who people are high on this year as well, because they're probably going to throw the football a little bit more than they had in the past.
Yes, and he's someone that I'm not upping, and it has nothing to do with Dalvin Cook or anything like that. But I saw a report that Deebo Samuel, now reports are coming out that he will most likely miss a few games. You think?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you thought he was going to be ready to go? No way, John. This is someone where I'm not even targeting him at this point. Loved him last year. But this year, how do I even target this guy? I'm not paying 6th round value for him.
I don't know how anybody's paying the standard value for him. I mean, I know he's dropped a little bit since, where he was initially ranked. He was sort of in that like 3rd round rank. End of 3rd, early 4th is where his initial rankings were. Yeah, it's not only that he's going to miss a few games, it's that you're unsure how he's even going to come back from the injury to begin with once he is deemed healthy, So at this point, I agree with you. I'm standing totally clear of Deebo Samuel unless you're getting like a 9th or 10th round drop on him, which who knows? Maybe as the season comes closer, you get that. Right now people are taking more chances on him earlier in drafts, hoping maybe there's a better chance that he comes back sooner. But as a lot of these pitchers clear up as we get closer to the start of the season, and you find out maybe he's put on IR, and he's not ready for the season, and the 49ers like, you know what? We'll see you in week 8. Well, then he's going to drop all the way down, and you can grab the value there. You'll bump up a Brandon Ayuk. You'll bump up a Kendrick Bourne, who I've been taking with my last pick in some recent best balls lately. Guys like that are going to get bumped up. Jalen Hurd is another person who I've seen a lot of people sort of start grabbing as maybe a sneaky play. He missed last season, but there's some interesting upside potential with him as well. So, yeah, I'm not grabbing Samuel. I'm not grabbing a wide receiver with foot problems that early in draft. It's another reason why Alshon Jeffrey has been a guy I've taken very late in some best balls so far because, he's coming off a foot problem as well. But when he's healthy, assuming he's good to go, he's someone that is heavily involved in that offense, but I'm only taking him at a discount.
Right, exactly. And we'll have more for you when it comes to our Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide, which you can get right now, 1997 fantasyalarm.com/NFL Draft Guide. John, we'll actually be, or at least I forget if you're in or not. I know I am. I will be in a mock for the Draft Guide, which I'm very excited about.
I'll be there.
Good. Be there. Oh, so I'm going to lose now. Now I'm sweating bullets.
Well, I just gave you my draft strategy, Fancy. So.
That's right. So if anything now, and this is very interesting, and this is what you all need to start doing for your fantasy football leagues, get intel on your league mates. It's something that should be very obvious that people just don't do. Casual conversations with your league mates right now, they're not in full draft prep mode until probably a few days before the draft. That's not you, FA Nation. No, you're getting the draft guide and you're going to be prepping right now. But John, I love getting intel from my league mates. And even if some of them are watching, they're too dumb to realize when I'm just trying to have conversation. I'm like, oh, so Keyshawn Vaughn, you going after him? I mean, seriously, John, do you ever get intel from your league mates? I do it all the time.
A little bit. There's certainly some friends leagues that I kind of already know guys that they have impressions on, so it doesn't take much digging conversationally. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have understandings. That's why James Rondon and I talk all day about different players and strategies. So when we're in drafts together, we know what rounds we like guys and we know who they're going to take. It's not a surprise to one of us, especially when we're drafting next to one another, but it's like, who's going to get Matt Breida late? Who's going to take James White? The guys like that we both are fans of in different spots of drafts. We kind of have an idea of where we're going to go. So, yeah, I'm certainly one to try to get some information, but I also have a feeling at this point on who guys like and who they don't.
Yes, and John, I definitely learned a lot about you, Mr. Auction Bully himself, by being in an auction with you and Grande with FA Nation. If there's anything I know about James Grande coming up, if I'm in any drafts with him, it's that I'm probably, if I really want Jack Doyle and I want to invest, I'm going to have to go after him at least a round earlier than I thought, John, because Jimmy Grand's going right after him.
I mean, I'm a Jimmy Graham guy. You know that. So I'm all about it. Yeah, Jimmy Grande is going to go.
Jimmy Graham. I said Jimmy Grand, a.k.a. James Grande. Okay. That's my fault. I'm a big nicknames guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Grande's going to be all about it, for sure. So,
yes. And you're all about Jimmy Graham. You took Jimmy Graham in Sirius XM's Independent State.
I take him in a few leagues. Yeah, I take him in a few leagues. I think Jimmy Graham is getting overlooked this year a little bit. I like the fact that he's on a team that has a better quarterback and an offense that does use their tight ends. I know a lot of people are upset with the Trey Burton experience last season. And even 2 years ago, he certainly didn't live up to the draft value, but a lot of that had a lot to do with the quarterback play in Trubisky. If you look at his overall numbers, like they really weren't that terrible, and there's some pretty obvious instances where he was missed by Trubisky as well. This is an offense in Nagy that likes to use the tight end, and Jimmy Graham is a pass-catching tight end. He's not there to block, so I'm not worried about their drafting a Cole Kmet. You're getting Graham, basically one of the last picks in your overall draft anyway, so if you're telling me, in rounds 13, 14, 15, I can get a tight end that could be in the vicinity of 70 targets, maybe 50 or 60 catches for 600 yards and 5 scores, like, I'm perfectly okay with that being my average tight end, given sort of how tight end production is across the league.
Yes, it's definitely a major drop-off after the first few, as we've seen over the last few years. So that's going to leave you out there an option. Whether or not you go after guys like Evan Engram or Darren Waller, you're going to pay early for Mark Andrews as well. I mean, that's a big decision right there, and it's going to take you out of a decision. And as John just said, and as me, I'm still deciding. I'm taking it draft by draft with how I'm going to handle the running back position. I'm trying to not be so enticed by the position by itself and to go with best overall, best available. But sometimes you just got to pivot and you got to work the room and you got to understand the flow of your draft room as well. And John, that's something that we're going to be doing because we're going to be in a good amount of drafts together. You talk about pivoting, it's going to be pivoting all over the place. And speaking of pivoting, John, another favorite of James Grande for the NBA that's returning this week, just a couple of days, Jonathan Isaac. Are you as shocked as I am that Jonathan Isaac is going to be playing in this restart? I thought his knee was completely destroyed and done.
I think I'm not nearly as surprised because he just gave them a lot of time, to really get everybody healed, His timeline initially was to put him out for the regular season of the standard NBA season. But the fact that they've pushed it back this far, it's allowed more time for his recovery. So I don't think that it's overly surprising for me. Now, I'm happy to see it. He's one of my favorite players. I took him in a lot of seasonal fantasy basketball leagues this year, so I was crushed when he went down with that injury because he was killing it beforehand. So, it's good to see him back, and I saw your Twitter exchange with him the other day. When it comes to auctions with John Isaac next year, all three of us are going to be up in the price on him because I'm going all in on him too.
Yeah, this is what sucks about Jonathan Isaac coming back right now. Any kind of value I was going to get or one of us was going to get, it's over. Because you know what Jonathan Isaac could do when he's on the floor. He's a 5-tool player. The guy gets a lot of mid-range blocks, and he's able to provide great performance on both sides of the ball, especially working the mid-range as well. And that's something that I knew once he gained a little bit more size and experience, he would be able to work the mid-range better, work the elbow better as he's able to get to the basket. But expect mid-range blocks, steals from this guy. Next year, John, in the draft guide, I don't know how we're going to even begin to rank this guy because depending on what kind of league you're in.
I think he's going to be a top 25 player. I think he's
You know what? He may.
I think he is. He's just now developing into like his size. He's a 7-footer that's a stretch that can do everything. Honestly, this kid is going to be a stud from what we've seen him as he's been given more opportunity. I absolutely love the kid. I think there's sky's the limit, and he's going to be on a team next year that's probably going to win like a fantasy basketball championship. I think he's going to be that good.
Yes, as long as he can stay healthy. Now, from the DFS side, John, I must say the one player you have to watch out for with Isaac, and we will figure out just how many minutes he's going to get right off the start, but Aaron Gordon, worried about him. Even from DFS for the first few games, that's a guy that maybe I'll capitalize on when his value drops just a little bit when it comes to the price point. But we saw how different of a player Aaron Gordon was when Jonathan Isaac was on the floor versus off the floor. You put Aaron Gordon at the 3, he wasn't attacking the rim anymore like we've seen him do so many times, even in dunk contests.
I don't like Aaron Gordon anyways. I would much rather the space be cleared away for Isaac there. That's my lone worry, I guess, would be that, the usage is rather spread on Miami. Orlando rather. They have Vucevic there. They have Gordon. Markelle Fultz. We saw him really come on in the middle of that year. I'm fully expecting him to be the point guard from the get-go next year. And that was the number 1 overall pick a few years ago. It just took him some injuries to get over and maybe get his head on straight. And Orlando's a team that's certainly on the come. But I just feel like Isaac has the potential to be the best of that group.
Yeah, he's going to be excellent as long as he can stay healthy, but that could be said with a lot of athletes. John, one more question for you, because we've seen a lot of news from in and out of the bubble for the NBA. For those that might be looking to place a wager, who is your NBA champion?
Ah, man. I don't want to go chalk and say Lakers,
Why? But if that's the winning bet, then you have to go with it.
I know, but
I don't care that we're being obvious. We want to win.
I know. So the thing is, I feel like there's a lot of flaws to them that could make them get upset as well. But
J.R. Smith.
Yeah, it's so tough. I would really, I watched some of these preseason games. Have you seen any of these summer camp games?
Portland dude, I wish it was summer league, man. But I have
camp, whatever they are.
Yes.
Yeah, the scrimmages. Yes. Portland has looked very good. And Yusuf Nurkic the other day, and I only watched a couple quarters of it. When I left, it was the end of the third. He had 17 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks through 3 quarters. If Nurkic is back and healthy, and you pair him up with Whiteside, and you add in Zach Collins, who's now healthy and back, and you're adding in already a Lillard and a McCollum, that team is deep and can certainly make a run. Over time, we've had a lot of conversations about maybe long shot picks, and I've always kind of been like, well, the Grizzlies have a 3-game lead over them, and Pelicans have a lot of young guys. I'd be excited to see Zion is supposedly going to be back in time, but after watching Portland in that game, and it was against Toronto, which many feel is one of the best teams in the West, in the East, Portland is definitely an intriguing candidate. You're going to draw Portland Lakers maybe in a round 1 matchup. That could be the upset that I would definitely lay some money on Portland.
I would love to see it, John. However, their schedule, as I'm trying to bring it up quickly, or their schedule from what I've seen, and I want to get the exact numbers, it's not easy. It's one of the harder schedules that I've seen. And let me give you what they're dealing with for these 8 games. Memphis, that's going to be make or break right off the start for them. So that's going to be on Friday. Then they've got Boston, Houston, Denver, the Clippers, the Sixers, the Mavs, and then they end with the Nets. Not an easy schedule, John.
Oh, the Nets are easy because I think you and I are shooting. Yes. I think you and I are shooting up for them this weekend. So
right, they have to make it to that game, and they're still a couple games behind too.
Yeah, no, it's a tough schedule, but I was just impressed in what I saw from them. So again, guys getting their feet back under them. Maybe it's a little bit sloppy, but seeing them go up against a tough team like Toronto and play as well as they did, and the guys that we had question marks about playing as well as they did, that's a team not to sleep on.
Right, and again, Zach Collins and Yusuf Nurkic, like John said, being back helps. And the plan is for them to start Collins and Nurkic with Whiteside coming off the bench with Noah Ariza. Man, I want them to try out a lineup where they have Collins, Nurkic, and Whiteside all in the lineup. But hey, why not have Whiteside there to destroy opposing second units? So they're ready to go, John. And again, I was watching Zach Collins make some tremendous post moves, out of sight, out of mind. We hadn't seen him early going in the season when he destroyed his shoulder. This guy is good, and this team is good. I wish they had Trevor Ariza, would give me a little bit more confidence in them because he's a great perimeter defender, but we know the offense will be there, John, and we know the front court defense will be there at least because Carmelo Anthony is not going to give it to them with all of his cheap rebounds.
No, but luckily they won't need to with Melo. They just need him to sit on the 3-point line at this point. Collins is 7'2". You're going to have 2 7-footers out there playing power forward and center next to him and Nurkic, and then you throw in Whiteside in there. So they're going to have the rebounding and sort of interior defense covered. You just got to let Melo hang out there on the perimeter and maybe throw a hand up there every now and then and try to stop some shots.
That's all he has to do. It's a very easy assignment for Carmelo Anthony.
Just get in the way, Melo. That's all you have to do. Just get in the way.
Stay mellow. He's John Impemba at JImpemba777. I'm Justin Fensterman at Fensty Sports, covering all sports, helping you win. That's what we do. You'll get an awesome NBA preview day of on Thursday with Ronas and James Grande, who we've mentioned a few times. John, let's continue to dominate. Let's continue to win. For all of you out there, we're not giving up anything. I don't care if tomorrow another team decides not to play or COVID outbreak, as theirs is a season in any of the core sports and even the other sports as well. We are covering it. We are a family. Families stick together because we always dominate. There is no other option. We just win.
Catch you guys next time.